Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning with all of you and with the distinguished panel, but in particular with my colleague, friend, mentor, and co-conspirator, George Kelly. George and I have spent many years working together in a variety of different departments and assignments, probably most famously here in New York City with the transit police and the turnaround of the transit subway system during the time of Bob Kiley and David Gunn, two visionaries who really set out to change the public transportation system in the city for the better and began to do that. And George and I had the pleasure of working with them on dealing with so many of the quality of life issues in that system at that time. My remarks with you this morning will be somewhat extemporaneous, and I'm going to stay away from the statistics, which I'm sure some of the panel and some of the handlers, I'm sorry, you want to be listening I'll try to keep my hands from flapping around. I'll stay away from the statistics as it relates to New York. I want to talk to you about my own experiences and my support of the idea that more can be done in this critical area. I am a New Yorker. I'm proud to be one. And for the last 4 years, I've had the opportunity since returning from LA to really enjoy this city. And one of the things that my wife and I thoroughly enjoy is that you walk in this city. In Los Angeles, you didn't. You got in the car and you went in the car anywhere. In this great city, you step outside your door and you walk to work. You take the subway to work. You drive to work. Now you can increasingly bicycle to work. Or to any of the things you want to do in this city. It is a city that works because it tries to basically blend all of these things into a system that effectively allows room for everybody in an extraordinarily congested city. But as to how to do that, how to meet the needs of vehicles, bicycles, pedestrians, all of the things that are so important that make the city so livable, that will be the challenge. Certainly the past administration that is exiting, the Bloomberg administration, has spent a significant amount of time on the focus on redesigning city streets, the bicycle initiatives, and the new mayor-elect coming in, the good news for New Yorkers, is also committed to expanding on that vision with a vision of his own. The good news is that there is room for improvement. The good news is that it takes collaboration, and if there's a city in America that understands the importance of working together, it's this city. I've seen it firsthand in the transportation system in the 90s, during my time as police commissioner, during my time away when I come back to visit the city from time to time and watch the improvements from the perspective of an outsider. And now that I've been back the last 4 years as a resident of this city, using its various transportation systems. I have a long career in the area of transportation, beginning in the 6th grade, when I began, it might be argued, my police career by serving as a traffic safety monitor at the Mathis School in Boston, Meeting House Hill. During my time in the 4th and 5th grade, I could not wait to put on that white cross strap and that little badge that signified that I would be in charge of my intersection, crossing kids back and forth to school. And I'm proud to report during my tenure in the 6th grade, not a single student was hit in my intersection. My interest in this area goes back a long way. When I joined the Boston Police Department in 1970, my career also began in traffic. Within 6 weeks of entering the Boston Police Academy, they rushed us through, got us fitted for our blue uniforms and our white cross straps, and I was standing, freezing my butt off, directing Thanksgiving traffic outside of Boston Police Headquarters at Berkeley and Stewart Street. My first assignment in the Boston Police Department was dealing with the chaos of Boston traffic and pedestrians. We like to celebrate in New York that we have the most and sometimes the worst of everything. Well, you don't have the worst jaywalkers and worst drivers. Boston still has that claim to fame, and New York would have a way to go to catch up with it. I've had the experience also of coming from Los Angeles recently, where for 7 years I was privileged to serve as the chief of police in that department. That is a city that focuses incredible energy on the issue of traffic, trying to move it, sometimes successfully, oftentimes not, and the issue of pedestrian safety. That it is an extraordinarily controlled environment. As much as people talk about LA traffic, my sense of it, from having experienced certainly Boston, where I grew up, in New York, where I've now had a number of living experiences, that in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Police Department formed focused a lot of time, energy, and attention on traffic enforcement with the various motorcycle units, traffic control units, and to such an extent that I can still recall my first visit to Los Angeles in 1980, staying at the Holiday Inn up at Hollywood and Sunset Boulevard. And as I was leaving the hotel after checking in, the clerk behind the desk says, "Where are you going, sir?" I said, "I'm going to go take a walk along Hollywood Boulevard." He said, "Be careful not to jaywalk." He says, "If you do, the police will cite you." And he's correct. In Los Angeles, a city that has more than its share of crime, gang-related crime, the one thing you don't do in that town is jaywalk, because their enforcement efforts over the years have emphasized if you jaywalk, one, there's a good chance that the law enforcement community will in fact cite you, but also that there is incredible disdain on the part of your fellow walkers and operators of vehicles for those that enter those intersections inappropriately as jaywalkers. And as far as car behavior, that I had the opportunity to see it firsthand in its most dramatic form. During a major blackout in Los Angeles, the power grid went down, all the traffic lights were out, and I was up in a police helicopter overseeing the city in the sense of the chaos that you would think would follow when that happened. But chaos did not occur, particularly on inner city streets, because within that city, drivers over time, because it has been enforced, at intersections, there is a courtesy routine that is followed. One car at a time enters that intersection when the lights are disabled. It was fascinating to be up in that helicopter and watch how traffic was extraordinarily heavy, but there was no gridlock in the intersections because people had learned in that city to enter appropriately. So it can, in fact, be done. I've experienced it in LA in the sense of where there is that control. Emergency vehicles. In Los Angeles, when emergency vehicles are approaching, not only do the vehicles in the lane in which they are traveling all pull to the right to let them by, approaching traffic from the opposite side pulls over also. It used to drive me absolutely crazy. I'd be sitting in my police car going the other direction. My driver would pull over the curb, and here's this ambulance or police car half a mile away coming, and we're 3 lanes over from it. And I could never understand that, but it was part of the ingrained culture in that city to make way for emergency vehicles. So I've had a first-hand example where a system that's not perfect, a system in Los Angeles that struggles to increase its public transportation, which is totally inadequate, has nowhere near the thrust of this conference this morning, pedestrian issues and how to improve pedestrian safety. But it had the opportunity to reinforce something that I strongly believed in from the beginning of my policing career going back to the 1970s in Boston. The idea that you can expect what you inspect. You pay attention to an issue. You have a reasonable expectation, particularly with collaboration, with the idea of people working together. In the case of New York City, the various entities that are involved in dealing with transportation issues, transportation department, police department, all the various entities collaborating together. You can improve on what already is. You do not have to accept the status quo. But back in the 1970s, I'd go to community meetings 3 nights a week, armed with all those statistics. It didn't take me long to understand that what we, the police, were focusing on at that time was not what the public was focusing on and experiencing. I had all the up-to-the-minute crime statistics. I had what we were doing in responding to it. And the community wanted to talk about quality of life, so-called broken windows that George Kelly and Jim Wilson so famously articulated in their Atlantic Magazine article in the 1980s, in which I'm a strong adherent to. They wanted to talk about the graffiti, they wanted to talk about the street prostitution, narcotics dealing, the gangs, all the things that were destroying their neighborhoods, the so-called victimless crimes, but crimes in which their neighborhood and ultimately the systems were victimized by. So very early on in my policing career, I had the understanding and appreciation that I think I took with me in the succeeding 30 years to appreciate that you have to, in addition to the traditional role of police, traditional role of government as it relates to crime and disorder, you also have to basically listen. Listen to the public to understand, while you might think that's the appropriate priority, it might not be necessarily what they think. This conference today is evidence that in this city, at this time, continuing a set of experiences of many years, and certainly seeking to increase it in the new administration, there needs to be an increased focus. You can expect what you expect on this issue. Can there be? Certainly. One of the benefits of today in our world, in our society, is the advent of incredible levels of technology that can assist in this matter. One of the issues for policing has always been in dealing with traffic enforcement, dealing with traffic accidents, dealing with trying to focus on prevention of them, is how labor intensive it has to be. Well, now we are fortunate, very similar to what we dealt with in transit in the 1990s, the issue of fare evasion, 250,000 fare evaders a day, growing rapidly, an $80 million cost to the transit system. George Kelling recruited me down with David Gunn and Bob Kiley to work with them on that system. And we worked on the improvement of the technology, the machines, the turnstiles. But it's going to take a while to put that turnstile, the modern turnstile that you now deal with, the swipe card, soon to be the touch card. Back in those days, it was going to be very labor intensive. And we designed ways to more effectively utilize the police force to focus on that problem, to basically work in tandem with the technology that was being developed. Camera systems, the new improved fare machines that don't let you through unless you in fact do your swipe card. Similarly, I think in this area, there is an opportunity moving forward to blend the improved technology coupled with improved and more intense focus by police department, by transportation department, to focus on many of the issues that you're identifying as a group here this morning. Myself, as a user of city streets, I have my own set of pet peeves. I think you all know my extraordinary pet peeve about graffiti. I hate it and absolutely do everything in my power to deal with it as a sign of social disorder, uncontrolled, and not paid attention by police. Similarly, in the area of traffic enforcement, it does require, in addition to the technology enhancements, more red light cameras, speed cameras, various types of technology that allow you to identify where are you having emerging problems with increasing speed instead of decreasing, increasing numbers of accidents. There's so much technology that can help us to map it, but it's still going to require some old-fashioned focus of how you utilize, in case the police department, your police officers, what do they get as far as prioritization for their daily assignments? What is the emphasis of the department? And it goes back again to the old adage, you can expect what you inspect. I would sense in this city at this particular time, there is an opportunity to improve on what has already been improvement. That the comment that you made about the city justifiably feeling very good that the statistics are going in the right direction. Well, back in the 90s, I know when I left as police commissioner, and then subsequently the commissioners after me, under Mayor Giuliani, and then when Mayor Bloomberg and Commissioner Kelly came in 2002, the constant question was, well, how low can crime go? Well, here we are 20-some odd years later, and every year it has continued to go down. And every administration, myself included, has celebrated it going down, going in the right direction. And arguably, it has the capacity to continue going down. Similarly, in this area, I would argue that there is an increased opportunity for even further gains in this, moving toward what has been stated as Mayor de Blasio's goal of a zero fatality situation. Let me speak briefly about the issue of fatalities, because ironically that policing, the public, and indeed the media, we do tend to focus on the more sensational, and the more sensational always has been the issue of crime. Lives taken through the issue of murder, gun violence. Yet in this city, as the city administrations over the last 20-some odd years have been successful in reducing crime levels to levels nobody ever would have anticipated, and allows the city to claim, rightfully so, that it's one of the safest large cities in the world. We are at an interesting crossroads where the intersection of traffic fatalities and crime fatalities is in fact conflicting.
Traffic fatalities are crimes.
Thank you.
That's why we.
If you wouldn't mind, having a chance with the panel, that the idea is that in the sense of reduction, the focus and the success in reducing traditional, what we would think of as crime, and the gentleman is correct, that a fatality oftentimes, in fact, is the result of a criminal act. in terms of not just an accident, if you will. But there is a potential and a need to focus as much on the lives that can be saved through reduction in traffic accident as the life that can be saved through a violent type of crime. And again, it comes back to the idea of focus, collaboration, coordination. So as a prelude for this meeting, the good news is, as the administration that is leaving, that has made so many changes and so much focus in this area, has in fact been able to say with some satisfaction that it has improved. The next administration is at the beginning, as they're coming into office, is advocating for the same thing. I would argue, as they come in, and I would support and encourage, that based on my experience traditionally in this city dealing with crime and disorder, and in Los Angeles, a city that, because of the nature of that city and its traffic issues, focuses a lot of resources, a lot of collaboration on the issue of traffic enforcement, that more can be done. I would anticipate that more will be done. As to how it is done, in what quantities, what types of time frame, well, that will be up to the next mayor, his commissioners, and you. Because the ultimate collaboration, very similar to what went on in the city in the 90s, with the public, starting first with Mayor Dinkins, and moving on to the successive mayors, said, we want our city back. We want to be able to walk the streets safely. We want to be able to use the subways free of fear and anxiety. Similarly, in a city that is a walking city, it's one of the great things about this city, the idea that it is so much a walking city. Similar to what occurred in the 90s, continuing on crime, there's more that can be done to deal with this issue. And I, in terms of my crystal ball, as I look forward into this area, next administration, and the changes that are being made on the technology, the ability to have more speed cameras, the ability to have more technology, actually predicting, similar to what's going on in policing at this moment. We have moved from the era in the 1990s of community policing, which we still embrace, to the era of intelligence-led policing, certainly subsequent to 9/11. And now the new movement in policing is predictive policing, using large amounts of information. The algorithms that have been developed by many of our nation's leading institutions and universities is allowing police in dealing with crime to predict with some certainty within a certain geographic area in a certain time frame. Absent intercession by the police, there will be a crime that will occur there. I would argue that looking at this issue, there is that similar capacity based on the huge amounts of information that can be gathered, that not only do we need in a position to respond more quickly to what has occurred, is the ability to actually predict that in the next several weeks, in the next month, at this intersection, based on the history, that there is a likelihood that there will be a fatal accident at that intersection, or there will be multiple accidents. So in terms of assigning what are the scarce resources at any time of police and others, the predictability factor is also another element of the technology revolution that will assist in this revolution. Technology plus people, plus leadership, plus vision, plus collaboration. All of those together can, in fact, fulfill the goal, the dream, the vision of what this conference today is attempting to point more attention to, and in fact provide a platform to which everybody can be attracted. Everybody can find something in it for themselves, for the city, and a platform in which the successes and the failures can be measured in such a way that they can be immediately responded to and improved on. So as you go forward with the conference, as you go forward with the effort, as a New Yorker, I certainly wish you every success, because your success is my success. I'd like to walk the streets and ride the streets on a bicycle occasionally, although I restrict my bicycle riding to Central Park, and still don't feel comfortable riding a bicycle on the city streets. It's more for the potholes than anything else. Going through it is a time of optimism, and a time that I think, a time that this issue, it has come. So thank you this morning, and I'll look forward to the presentation by the panel of experts who I'm pleased to be joining here this morning. And thank you for your attention to my brief and extemporaneous remarks this morning. Thank you.